Alright, Wizards and Warriors 2. Now we're in trouble. Wait a second. That's Fabio. I remember that. Acclaim hired Fabio to be on their cover. I like how he has no armor on when the main character is a knight. I heard that Acclaim actually got upset when they saw the cover just before release, but how can they blame him? If you look at Wizards and Warriors 1, they were just mimicking the original artwork. Alright, let's just get started. This is going to be torture. Playing through the first level of this game brought back a flood of memories. The tricky jumps, the item shop / gambling hall, and the funny looking main character. Are his eyes popping out of his helm? I would guess that the developers weren't taking themselves seriously this time around, but boy would I be wrong. So the plot goes like this. You play the same character from the previous game, a knight by the name of Kuros. You're called to SINDARIN, where the evil wizard Malkil has turned himself into 4 evil elementals. You need to get help from the 4 animal kings so you can face Malkil again. Short and sweet. Now let's get down to business. When the game starts, it says, Enter Secret Level Code. As a kid, I always thought this was the name entry screen, but no, it's for the new password system they implemented. They really must have liked this idea of a password system because they got rid of the infinite continues. So now every time you lose all of your lives, you have to put in a tedious password. Why would they take out the continues? At the very least, they could have stored the code in the RAM and automatically put it in for you until you turn the game off. That's what passwords are for, turning the game off and coming back later on. They shouldn't be something repeated over and over during a single play session. The original did just fine with infinite continues, but Wizards and Warriors 2 upped not only the difficulty, but the frustration factor. So the first level is split into 2 parts, the lower mountainous region and the upper cloud area. In order to get to the clouds, you have to enlist the help of the Eagle King. The Animal Kings will ask you to retrieve items for them, but once you know where these items are, you will always know exactly where to find them. It would have been nice if they randomized the location, maybe add some more replay value. If you can avoid the slip and slide ledges, you'll make your way to the helpful bird and he'll take you to the second part of level 1, the cloud level. I'm not quite sure how vaporous water droplets are holding up a knight in a full suit of armor. I guess it's the wizard's magic. Or maybe they're just giant cloud-shaped helium-filled balloons. They must be because they're extremely bouncy, which makes it very difficult to navigate. But to top it off, there are these annoying yellow enemies that can kill you with one misplaced step. The hit detection for this game is terrible. You're able to get longer swords that are supposed to make it easier to hit enemies, but no matter what I did, it felt like a complete gamble every single time I faced an enemy. To make matters worse, you have to get a spell to beat each boss, which means you have to try and gather as much magic as you can before you get there. But if you attack enemies with your sword after you get the spell, it wastes the magic. So the only way you could kill enemies after you get the spell is to jump into them. It's completely ridiculous. This first boss is pretty easy, actually. You just blast him with the Windbane spell that, curiously, has the same icon as the boss himself. As long as you've saved up enough magic, he'll go down in no time. Then you get the first piece of the Ironsword. That's right, I forgot to mention the entire point of this game is to reassemble the Ironsword. The reason I forgot is because the sword is meaningless. The pieces of the sword are just trinkets. They don't actually do anything. The game says that the only way to defeat Malkil is to assemble the Ironsword, but you never actually use the Ironsword to kill him. Moving on to the forest level, confusingly known as Water, since the only level to actually receive a name is Icefire Mountain. Don't forget to be excited when you say that. I'm sure they didn't mean to call it water, but why did they even label it if they weren't going to come up with a name? I guess that water is referring to the elemental and not the lower half of the level, which wouldn't be confusing if they hadn't labeled Icefire Mountain! Whee! Anyway, this part is pretty easy. It's just like the first level. All you have to do is find the golden fly to get the attention of the Frog King, because either he needs to know he can trust you, or he's incredibly selfish and he doesn't care that the world's being taken over by a giant psychotic wizard that can multiply into supreme beings with silly faces. I found a WATERSPOUT spell that shoots Kuros up into the air, which would be great if you could use it more than once without having to go get a new key to unlock the chest you just unlocked. But it's ultimately useless unless you know where you're going, which defeats the purpose of going out of your way to get a water spell that you can only use once. As far back as I can remember, I only made it to the forest level once as a kid. And because I could never figure out the password system, I got frustrated and gave up. I probably saved myself years of therapy by giving up early. Back then, there was no internet to look up how to beat the game, so even if I did realize I could put in a password to continue the torture, it would have been in vain. The water elemental is a giant puzzle. In order to beat him, you have to find the Silver Fleece spell, and you have to know that it makes you invincible for a short time. Since I don't have a manual on me, I had to use the internet for advice on this one. These special spells are so cryptic. There's no description within the game. So how would you ever guess that, for instance, the Asp Tongue spell has to be cast inside the inn? When the game came out, the manual was all we had besides Nintendo Power, and it was just another way for the game creators to mess with our minds. The walkthrough also mentioned something about the Relics of SINDARIN. I found a secret hole beyond the waterfall, and it led me to this weird room. These purple blobs are a gamer's worst nightmare. They're invincible, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out how to get by them without getting hit. To top it off, they can almost kill you instantly. It's like putting a row of thwomps an inch off the floor and then being told there's a huge secret on the other side. I don't know how these developers got away with it. Well, you want to know what the huge secret was? Points. Yeah, the SINDARIN relics are there for points. After I got the Silver Fleece, I tried to use it, and the boss was still able to do damage to me and push me back. Since I had ventured through the entire underwater area without seeing any other chests, I was completely lost. You have to know that there's a secret passage through this wall in order to get the spell to kill the water elemental. This wall. The one that looks like any other wall. After I got my hands on the spell, I tried to gather magic so I could kill the boss and move on. But gathering magic is actually a secret. That's right. You have to know all of the secret areas to step on in order to fill your magic meter. And I messed up the only one I could manage to find. Well, my rage meter was about to explode at this point. I found a few magic stashes in the stream up above, but it wasn't enough. I had to sit there killing fish, which randomly dropped pieces of magic that only filled my bar half a point each. Look at that! I got one and the bar didn't even move! But it was enough to finish off the depressed, sweating, drooling wall of fury. Get it? He's depressed because he's blue. This is so frustrating. I love a good platformer, but the risk to reward ratio is way out of whack here. Take a look at this. I jumped into this wall and I found a secret area. I was just trying to get to the end of the level. Then when I come out, it drops me to the side of the platform and I fall all the way down. Plus I have these random puffs of air that send you flying as well. It's a nightmare. I made it to the top of the steaming volcano just in time for it to begin erupting. Lava shooting out all over the place. After some investigating, I found several doors on the side of the mountain. It's getting to the point where I just want to quit. I want to turn the game off and give up. So you know what the game does? It laughs at me. Yeah, when you go into one of these doors, you fall down a slope and end up at the bottom. But listen to that music. There's a bunch of treasure and 1-ups stuck on the side, but it's impossible to get to them. The developers of this game were cruel. There's no other way to see it. I climbed around the mountain trying to figure out what to do next, and I limited myself to only using the walkthrough when I was completely stuck. I bought a key from the innkeeper and I found the Fleetfoot spell. I was hoping that it would let me walk on slopes, but without a description I had to guess on how to use them. I guessed wrong and I wasted the spell. I had no money for another key, and no idea how to use the spell. Back to the walkthrough. It said to use the Fleetfoot spell to get to the right side of the cave, so all the spell does is make you go a little faster. It's just barely enough to jump this gap. Then you take the golden crown to the Dragon King, and he opens up the way to the fiery cavern. Wait a second. It shows him blowing fire up through the top of the volcano. Then you jump down the exact same hole. Shouldn't you just come back down into the same room that the dragon's in? Oh well, whatever. The next area to conquer is the Fiery Cavern, and it holds some of the weirdest enemies in the game. These purple demons with the really huge grins remind me of that old Nickelodeon cartoon, Real Monsters. Check it out, jerk skulls. I hate those guys. I picked up the Fire Smite spell and... Hold on, Fire Smite? I googled for the instruction manual and someone was kind enough to put it up online. This is what it says. Windbane charges your weapon with just the right magic to blow away the wind elemental. Blight water. You use it to dry up the water elemental. I can understand how my magical oxygen molecules are faster than the wind elemental's magical oxygen molecules, and it says the blight water dries up the water elemental. Those make sense, but the description of Fire Smite from the manual says, this is what it takes to really burn the fire elemental. So you're literally fighting fire with fire. What, does it use up its fuel source or something? In that case, wouldn't it be a giant explosion? I'm thinking way too much into this. It's Fire Smite. It smites fires. Only one sword piece left to go. We seem to be deep inside the Earth's crust. Or maybe we're back in the water area and those are blue barnacles. Look at that bedsheet ghost. Can you get any more basic than that? Terrible. Just terrible. By this point my hopes and dreams were completely crushed, so the game decided to try and take my sanity as well. You have to find the golden tankard for the Bear King. Well, I just found one outside. Why can't I give that one to him? I guess he wants the one with the handle on the left side. I went around trying to find his mug, and I walked right over it without even knowing. The tankard is actually buried in the rocks inside this cove. But how do you get it? Back to the walkthrough. The ledge in the upper left side of the cave is a switch. This ledge, the one that's identical to all of the other ledges. But you don't just step on it. You have to stand still for a few seconds and the mug levitates out of the ground. If they had made the rock a little different, then I would have spent more time investigating it, but there was no hope. They give you a jump button that automatically jumps. Had I even been able to make it here as a kid, this was basically the bane of my childhood existence. Giving me the ability to jump non-stop, then making a special switch that can only be activated by sitting still. I guess I should be grateful that at least they decided to put the switch in the same room as the tankard. And here's where the game strips me of my sanity. So we know the object is in this little room, right? Well, after you get the mug, you have to make this very specific jump. The only way to move on is to go through this tiny hole on the side. It took me 3 tries to get through there. And every single time I failed, I had to work my way back around to try again. This kind of difficulty should be saved for a secret, not a necessary passage. I gave the bear a special jar and now I get access to the lower pit. Sounds lovely. In a matter of minutes I was able to find the Earth Scorch spell. The manual says it's the only magic that will let you bury the Earth Elemental. What about those giant diamonds from the first game? That would probably work. A diamond-tipped blade? I mean, I'm supposed to be a warrior here, and the only way to kill anything is with magic. Or uncomfortable closeness. Can you believe there are turkeys that actually do damage to you? They look almost identical to the regular turkeys, and those barely help anyway. Shame on you programmers. Soon after I found the Earth Elemental, but I had no idea where I was supposed to hit him. He has a barrage of projectiles and I had a hard time getting mine through. I tried to stand just off to the side of the room to hit him, and it seemed to work, but I had to be in the perfect spot with the perfect height and perfect timing with no visual clues. We're getting close to the final summit now. I found some 7 League boots, which I guess are like a permanent solution to the Fleetfoot spell. They let you jump higher and travel faster, an absolute necessity for this part. I knew I had to climb the mountain, so I went as high as I could and I found a little door near the top. Almost there. I can feel it. I gathered as much magic as I could to prepare for the final fight. Here it is, the final boss. I had no idea what to expect. Wow, that's the happiest boss battling music I've ever heard. I guess I already beat the game. There's no need to finish it. Alright, fine. Here I go. So you have to kill 4 bosses at once, and they just completely manhandle you. Look at this! This is insane! I tried singling out one from the group, but it made it so much more difficult. I wasn't even able to get one of the 4 bosses down to 50% of his health line before I saw the game over screen. I tried over and over, but I couldn't figure out how to do it. They were just too strong and too fast. Ah, come on! This is ridiculous. That's just not fair. Okay, I gotta calm down. There's no way I can quit now. Someone else out there has beaten the game at some point, and so can I. Here we go, one last shot. Maybe if I use the Silver Fleece, that'll help. Yeah, take that! Not so tough once I've learned your pattern now, are you? So close. Almost there. Yes! I did it! I can finally say that I beat Wizards and Warriors 2. Awesome. Well, as far as NES endings go, this one's not too bad. You get to see Malkiel turn into a skull and shatter into pieces. That's pretty cool. Then the Animal Kings show up and that's it. Roll credits. I have to say, this is one of the hardest video games I've ever beaten. And without the internet, there was no way I could have done it. The best you could hope for in the 80s was an overly obsessed friend. Well, we still have one more Wizards and Warriors game to complete the trilogy, but I have to admit I've never played number 3. I'm looking forward to playing through an NES game that I've never really seen before. It should be a lot of fun.